Hello again. This month was really hectic for me, so I decided to go with one of the easier themes. This month I wanted to get good at finishing books. I dropped off during graduate school because I had to read 3 books a week for classes, and in 2018, while I was working at a chain bookstore, I decided that I wanted to love reading again. But that's a story from a different podcast. I've been keeping a list of books because people suggest things to me and I keep finding things that I want to get to. And it's a list that I've been adding to for about 12 years. The series tab has 45 listed, which puts the numbers at a total of 260 individual books. At the beginning of this month, I really examined what was getting in my way of knocking out this list. What I came to was time and having too many options. Every day I set aside time during my lunch to read, and I read from the pile that you see behind me. And that's great for the books that I have here, but what about the ones that I have in my apartment? I brought those books to a different state so I could read them and then finish them and give them away. And I think I've done that with 2 books in 6 years. And the other thing is, it's a lot of books. The way I used to pick from this list was to aim for the shorter books first and work my way to a higher page count, which also meant that I wasn't reading any books in a series because in my mind that equated to one big book that's 1,000 pages. So I've got a problem. I'm not finishing my books. And I understand what's causing the problem. So how did I try to solve it this month? In terms of decision fatigue, I fully changed the process. This is the wheel of books. I'm usually against a computer making decisions for me, but in this case, I was the one getting in my own way. I have 3 wheels, one of books to read on my break, one of books to read at home, and one of audiobooks. The winner for audiobooks was Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give, which... Sorry, hold on. Hey. Yeah, I'm in the middle of recording something. Oh, yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah. Alright, hold on. It's on this very special episode of a podcast that ended in 2019, I wanted to do rapid-fire 1-minute reviews of all the books that I tried this month. The Hate You Give came out in 2017 and goes through the fallout of a racially motivated shooting of a teenager by a cop from the point of view of a teenager that is living in a poorer area and attending a more upper-class, mainly white school. The violence happens fairly early, and the rest of the book examines how the main character navigates that pain as she moves through these different community spheres. Again, this came out in 2017, and it was a direct response to a rise in very specific violence perpetrated at this time in America. I really enjoyed the voice of the main character. I wish the book had a little more on the interesting dynamic between her and her family members, but I understand it's a young adult novel, so page count factors in. Because some of these books have been on my list for years, I put them on the list when I was reading more YA. 7 out of 10 Rachels. Next, and one that I'm still currently reading, is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. Although I don't put much stake in professionals like Siskel and Ebert, there is a structure to a review, and this is a book that helped me understand what that structure is. Green talks about everything from cave drawings to modern soda brands, starting with a description of the thing, middling with its wider importance, and ending on how much he enjoys the concept with a starred review. John Green was fairly popular when I was in high school and on Tumblr, and he really can write novels or nonfiction in a witty way that informs and appeals to an audience. 8 out of 10 Rachels. The Summer War is a snappy novella from Naomi Novik and focuses heavily on the politics of a fantasy realm and 3 siblings caught up in magic and prophecy. If you enjoy the familiar fantasy tropes, this one is easy to keep up with and fill in the blanks for. Overall, I would rate this a 5 out of 10 Rachels. If you follow me on Goodreads, I rated this higher. As my bio says, everyone gets 5 stars unless I have a strong opinion, so to get an actual review out of me, you have to ask. Revolutionary Mothers by Carol Birkin was pretty typical for a nonfiction history. It was laid out much in the way that I'm used to, starting with the topic that has the most resources, research, and information. Birkin follows individual women that were alive during the American Revolutionary War in the 1700s, then groups of women that had jobs or roles. This was a fun read for our country's semi-quincentennial, and it gets 8 out of 10 Rachels. Leigh Bardugo was an author that I was following closely for her Grishaverse series, and if anyone finds that red edge cover of Crooked Kingdom, shoot me a message because that is my resale white whale. As a popular YA author during a very specific time period, she was tapped to write Wonder Woman Warbringer, which is part of a series for DC Comics that was written for their big three. It starts with Diana not fitting in and then having to get off the island in order to resolve a world-ending problem. Everyone she's trying to help is a teenager like her, but they're rich, so they have access to things like private jets. Books about superheroes are a little hard because there's such a body of work already out there. And for the effort, 6 out of 10 Rachels. Roadside Picnic I might have not finished were it not also a novella. It reminded me of the Southern Reach series concept a little bit. In the book, we find out that aliens had stopped by Earth very briefly and left some things behind. The people who go into this area are called stalkers, and scientists at an institute study this intergalactic debris. This book is Russian, as is the film, which takes place in the world of the book but changes the characters and the story. 5 out of 10 Rachels. Okay, let me preface this by saying that I suggested that we add it to the library catalog because her other books were massively popular and the plot sounded interesting. I did not remember the overview saying that this was a choose-your-own-adventure book. I always died if that was an option. I had no sense of self-preservation that I could superimpose upon the characters. Attempting to emulate that gimmick is tough. In the story, scientists have found a way to use physics and invent time travel for a TV show with the title All This and More, a phrase which appears at least once per chapter. I wish I could say that the reader decision portion worked, but because the decisions are made so infrequently, and in some cases it's the illusion of a decision, it fell flat for me. I wanted to be able to choose a career over romance, and later in the book it makes sense why you can't. But the revelation left me feeling like I, as the reader, was being forced into an outcome that did not wrap up cleanly. The secondary antagonist didn't get enough page time to develop, and the 3 potential endings happened so quickly it left me with a sense of loss instead of resolution. 3 out of 10 Rachels. The Maltese Falcon was the last book that I finished in March. I'm in a book club with my mom, and we try to read things on our lists, but also things that fall outside our normal genres. Dashiell Hammett is the big name in noir, and I had gotten a free copy of this book so many years ago that I don't even remember why I got it. It follows a private detective as he tries to untangle the mystery of where a very expensive and historically significant golden statue is. The writing isn't too challenging, it's got a little bit of fun slang, and it's another fairly short read. I'm gonna give it 6 out of 10 Rachels. Unfortunately, there were 3 that I tried to read and just couldn't finish. As a rule, I give all books 50 pages to get my attention, and these didn't make the cut. Exiles had too much tell and no show, although I thought the setting of a Mars mission that had already gone wrong before the pilots got there had potential. The Near Witch had a Puritan-ish setting, which was a miss for me because the verbiage of that era is hard for me to lock into. And Mr. Magic, right off the bat, expects the audience to follow along with characters, time frames, and events that didn't have enough buy-in time for the plot to be rooted in realism. So that was 7 books in 1 month that I was able to finish. But like I said at the beginning, I only have so much time, so what did I change for this month to be able to work towards my goal? I get about 40 minutes of travel time to and from work each day, so during that time I'd pop on my headphones and listen to Wonder Woman. I also listened while making dinner, while cleaning, while doing a puzzle. Reading became part of an act as opposed to the primary act, meaning I could do 2 things at once. I was also reading multiple books at once, which is a skill that I developed when I was first learning how to read. Apparently, Joe Walton also has this habit and wrote an article about it, which I've linked below. The last thing that I'd like to do here, because I've always reached for individual books so I can cross them off my list faster, I'm also choosing one series every month to try to finish, or at least start. Let's spin the wheel here and see what series I should read first. A friend of mine bought me the first book in this series the year that it came out, and it was popular enough to get a trilogy, so let's see if it's worth the hype. What do you think? Did I achieve my goal for March? I'd love to hear about what you're reading or listening to, and if you have any suggestions for me. See you in the next video. I do think that the extended universe is what fans mean when we say Star Wars would be so good if it was good.